...2004's Christmas with the Kranks is a masterpiece of contemporary filmmaking, one of the single greatest cultural exports to come out of the US, and an incredible work of social critique and political satire. It's an examination not only of our own modern-day consumerist culture, but of the human condition itself, the ways we find meaning both in ourselves and in the world around us. Hi, I'm Jack Saint. Merry Christmas.
And happy holidays.
In the past on my channel, I've often alluded to one of my favourite holiday movies, Starship Troopers, a story of togetherness, spirit, hope and community. Well, specifically, it's a political satire of fascist propaganda set in a brutal war-torn future. But part of the point of the movie is in the fact that this story is played out in this really bizarre, almost eerily celebratory way, despite the horrific events being depicted. Kids fresh out of high school are hurried off to the military in the name of a pointless war leading to the tragic deaths of tens of thousands, but at times it feels like a military recruitment video. All camaraderie and hijinks and becoming best buds and... And then it transitions into this proud war movie about a badass soldier rising through the ranks. The tonal and aesthetic dissonance throughout the movie leads to this really unique movie watching experience. In short, it's a film about state military propaganda, written and directed as if it was made as state military propaganda. I bring this up because Christmas with the Kranks is basically that except a Christmas movie.
We skip Christmas. I will not be celebrating Christmas this year.
So you're really skipping out.
You got it. We've made the front page. We've made the front page.
Nora, please give us Frosty.
Please, listen, hey, don't do anything you'll regret.
Skipping Christmas. What a stupid idea.
And hey, what's in this holiday box? Why, it's a NordVPN holiday offer! If you want to celebrate the holidays by signing up with one of the world's leading online security and encryption services, you're in luck. Nord's currently offering an 81% off deal on a 3-year plan, as well as 2 amazing bonus gifts, 4 extra months of the service, as well as the NordVPN Password Manager app, brought to you by the cybersecurity experts at Nord. Scratch that one off the list, Mum and Dad. Nord is a great service, offering military-grade encryption across thousands of servers in over 60 countries. So if you're looking for an online security solution, check them out with the link in the description and the offer code JackSaint. Christmas with the Kranks tells the story of Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis. I do not know their characters' names, and I do not care to. The movie begins shortly before the holiday season, with the bittersweet departure of the couple's only daughter Blair, who will be spending her first Christmas away from the family, working with the Peace Corps in Peru. Corpse? It's after getting home from dropping her off that our story really kicks off, and the thought runs through Daddy Tim's head that will shape the entire narrative of the film. If their daughter is away for Christmas, why not them too? He decides that he and his wife should take a break and spend the money they'd usually save up for the holiday season on a tropical cruise instead. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wow, that sounds like a really normal, average thing for 2 people to do. In fact, this is such a normal thing to do that it sounds like kind of a boring premise for a movie. because going away for the holidays when you have no familial obligations is a perfectly regular, not weird at all thing for two middle-aged adults to decide to do. And yes, going away for the holidays, especially on a rare year where you don't need to make any family arrangements, is a very normal thing that, barring any financial difficulties, creates no obvious conflicts. Unless you're Christmas with the Kranks.
We don't want to, Mary. We're taking a break. 1 year off, no Christmas whatsoever.
So, in the case of Christmas with the Kranks, Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis going away for Christmas is actually a massive deal. It's actually an extreme, radical choice that absolutely everybody in their personal lives is shocked and disturbed by. Friendships will be broken, the neighborhood brought into chaos, because these two people decide to spend their holidays on a holiday. For the next hour of the film, a harassment campaign is organised against the couple in an effort to get them to call off their cruise and take part in the Christmas festivities. Abuse is hurled at the Kranks by old friends, and even local children are gathered up to intimidate the family, led by so-called unelected ward boss of the neighbourhood, Victor Frohmeyer. Hey, it's Dan Aykroyd. In a situation like this, it looks like even the police can't be trusted. So, with all this in mind, we could probably just conclude that this is a story about the hapless Krank family just trying to make it through to the day of their cruise, with the neighbourhood being shown as this haunting, antagonistic force to be defeated. They are the bad guys, a malicious and obsessed sect, close-knit, always watching, always waiting to strike. So remember when I did that video about Disney's Sky High?
Hey there, movie lovers! Fun fact, did you know that in 2005, Disney inadvertently produced and released actual fascist eugenics propaganda?
Specifically about how there's this moment halfway into the film where it feels like we're starting to get a grasp on the film's message that in this high school filled with superheroes, the decidedly average main character is gonna prove that you don't need genetic gifts to be a hero. And then, at exactly that moment, the main character inexplicably gets superpowers, and it turns out the movie isn't really about that at all. In fact, the entire film's conclusion winds up being predicated on the main character having not just genetic gifts, but the most genetic gifts of anyone ever. In establishing the story of a society upheld by a strict and unfair genetic hierarchy, the fact that the plot just kinda drops the message that this is a bad or wrong thing winds up leaving the message of the film feeling almost completely contradictory to what it was originally leading to. A film about the pitfalls of a eugenicist society winds up just being a movie about eugenics. So at the halfway point of Christmas with the Kranks, Tim and Jamie's daughter abruptly decide she's coming home for the holidays. They cancel their plans for a cruise, and then the story becomes about the whole neighbourhood coming together to celebrate a magical Christmas season. Yep. That's the movie. So, the film has spent a solid hour establishing the fact that the social group surrounding the Kranks is creepy, obsessive, and ultimately genuinely threatening.
Nora, stop the car! Stop the car!
Let's make no bones about it, they're a cult, right? Look, here's a few symptoms of cults, as compiled by professors and cult specialists Jean-Gilles Lalique and Michael Langone on the subject. 1. The group displays excessively zealous and unquestioning commitment to its leader. 2. Questioning, doubt, and dissent are discouraged or even punished. 3. The leadership dictates, sometimes in great detail, how members should think, act, and feel. 4. The group has a polarized us versus them mentality. 5. The leader is not accountable to any authorities.
Shall I call the chief?
And 6. The leadership induces feelings of shame and or guilt in order to influence and or control members. Often this is done through peer pressure and subtle forms of persuasion.
Stop the car! Stop the car!
And all of a sudden, this is thrown totally out the window. The neighborhood's behavior no longer questioned, and even some of their most troubling aspects are abruptly turned into a benefit. Blair needs a ride back from the airport? Good thing the neighborhood has law enforcement under their command. Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis are successfully love-bombed by their weird, creepy neighbors. After the film has spent so long highlighting the demented nature of the community surrounding the Kranks, insisting that they embrace the spirit of the holidays while being absolute monsters to them, it just reverts back from this knowing satire into another heartwarming Hallmark Christmas movie. Forget all the other stuff. I guess the movie was actually about the power of friendship. I think it's mostly for this reason that both critics and audiences, generally speaking, absolutely despise this movie. As Entertainment Weekly's Owen Gieberman puts it,
in its hostile sitcom way, Christmas with the Kranks is a paranoid comic nightmare of conformity gone mad. What makes the movie a bizarre, if depressing, parable of the Bush era is that it never questions the homogenized wholesomeness of the Kranks' neighbors. If anything, it's on their side.
And it's at this point I'm gonna be a contrarian and call this movie a masterpiece. Because if Starship Troopers was a movie about state military propaganda, as made by state military propagandists, Christmas with the Kranks is a movie about cults, as made by cultists.
Maybe have you start thinking about putting others first instead of yourself?
Nora, stop the car.
In popular filmmaker Louis Theroux's 2015 documentary My Scientology Movie, Louis spends a considerable amount of his time talking with ex-senior church official Marty Rathbun about the controversial church and its practices. From their conversations, a lot could be gleaned about not only the depths of depravity committed by the church, the emotional and physical abuse of members, the constant harassment of dissidents, but how such monstrous behaviours came to be made acceptable. Marty and other participants in the documentary would oftentimes stress how many of the people brought into the church were perfectly ordinary, even pleasant and well-meaning individuals. Yet, going by what we're shown and told, quite a different story emerges.
With Marty, foster care, do you get paid enough for the foster care?
What we discover is a series of cleverly devised social doctrines, designed to distance individuals from behaviours that might promote critical thought, while encouraging them to remain within the in-group. KSW, Keep Scientology Working.
And keeping Scientology working is basically like obliterating anything that doesn't have to do with Scientology and keeping it working. Anytime somebody does something in Scientology that's not 100% Scientology, you crush that person so that they do not ever do that again.
Avoid SPs, suppressive people.
Stop committing suppressive acts.
Through these systems, anything outside of Scientology, even the seemingly innocuous, is to be rejected, mocked, and denounced. Those who do not indicate the proper level of enthusiasm for the movement, doubly so. There is a system of hierarchy which rewards members for their continued support of the church, and bizarre rituals made to reaffirm conformity.
Acknowledge it as loudly as you can.
Thank you!
Or, you know, that's what the documentary says. I never say that personally. Sign me up! So my point is, there's one specific moment of the documentary that always jumps out at me. One in which Louis and Marty are using actors to recreate Scientology practices. At one point, Marty points out how these drills will usually end with a practice of standing up and applauding an image of L. Ron Hubbard, founder of the church. And Louis suggests, in the name of recreation, to have the actors do so. Marty takes immediate offense to this suggestion, heavily advising Louis not to do so before storming off the set. At this point, Louis, not fully understanding the issue, indicates to the actors to stand and applaud. And as they do, Marty declares the entire project a failure, that after so much time drilling down the danger of the cult manipulation of the Church of Scientology, all it took was that little bit of social pressure, that little expectation of performance, for every actor to, without hesitation, follow the commands of a man they were implored not to follow. For most of my time watching Christmas with the Kranks, there was this constantly repeating thought going through my head. How can anyone possibly care about any of this? All of it was the most absolutely bizarre, middle-class, waspy, suburban bullshit concerns that I could not imagine real, actual human beings being that concerned about. The boss is going on vacation with his wife on Christmas, and this is something that's upsetting to his employees. They're not putting a giant snowman ornament on the roof. Jamie Lee Curtis might not get a giant tin of ham in time for the Christmas Eve party. Their Christmas tree isn't big enough. They use tanning beds.
Father Zabriskie!
In a weird way, I was reminded of the practices I'd read and heard about the Church of Scientology. The abject mockery of anything that seemed even nominally subversive to the in-group, and the celebration of even the most mundane indication of conformity. Like, hell yeah, Tim Allen, you put the snowman ornament on the roof. You are in fact one of us. Now, I don't think Christmas with the Kranks is necessarily saying anything that interesting about Christmas specifically, and it certainly isn't commenting on examples of cult behavior so well established as Scientology. You know, if Scientology was like that. I do like the fact that it's a film about Christmas that is at the very least honest about the reality of the holiday for the majority of people. It's an aesthetic cast over a series of arbitrary purchasing decisions made in the name of tradition. Tradition in the name of what? Certainly not Christianity, if Christmas with the Kranks has anything to say about it. Aside from one cursory mention of a donation to the church, the film makes no reference to religion throughout its entire run. Wait, no, there's also a really uncomfortably long scene of the local pastor just staring at Jamie Lee Curtis in a bikini.
Jeez, lady, make up your mind.
Can I get another towel, please?
I'm looking for a Band-Aid.
And any illusion of the film really being about the warmth, love, and community of the holiday is thoroughly undercut by its first half, depicting the neighborhood as cruel and abusive control freaks. Even any idea of the holidays being about giving and helping the needy gets dismissed, with the only needy individual depicted in the film being a seedy crook whom helping winds up being a terrible mistake. Then Santa beats him unconscious. If you go by A Christmas Carol, the holiday season is about empathy and generosity. If you go by Home Alone, it's about family and togetherness. If you go by A Christmas Story, it's about sexy leg lamps. And if you go by A Christmas with the Kranks, it's about the sinister underlying nature of tradition and conformity. A reminder that all it really takes is one step away from the utterly arbitrary set of customs associated with the holiday to become the subject of disdain, ridicule, and abuse by those closest to you. And isn't that what the holiday season's really all about? What I think Christmas with the Kranks is commenting on is something more broad than just the specific weird customs of our yearly consumerish tradition. It's a film of two very distinct halves, and yeah, that feels super jarring on an initial watch, but it also feels meaningful. The film is very pointedly showing us both this suburban community at its best and at its worst. And the only difference is a refusal to conform in the most incredibly mundane, inoffensive ways. In many ways, it's a horror movie. In the same way something like a home invasion movie might say, look how quickly your feelings of personal security can be compromised, Christmas with the Kranks says, look how quickly the support network around you can completely turn on you. I definitely think Owen Gieberman was onto something when he related this movie to the Bush era. Absolutely, the film brings with it this uncomfortable tension, being so devoid of anything outside of the most stereotypical straight white Christian middle-class demographic, despite being set in an increasingly culturally diverse and open society. In every way, the setting of the film feels controlled and contained. Every house on the block is made to be decorated in this garish Christmas regalia. And you have to wonder, where the hell did all the Jewish people go? Or the Muslims? Or the Hindus? How would people from those communities be treated if they weren't celebrating Christmas, if this is what the Kranks are getting? The focus of Christmas with the Kranks really isn't Christmas, in the same way the focus of Christmas isn't really Christmas, at least in the US, where it's become so divorced of its original religious associations. Instead, it's a film about the ways in which cult mentalities can seed themselves into even the most seemingly innocent and inoffensive aspects of our everyday lives. Elaborating on his earlier checklist of cult behaviors, Michael Langone actually put out another article discussing the term cult itself.
Much as people may wish that it were so, the fact is that, at least at present, no scientific test incontrovertibly establishes whether or not a group is indeed a cult. Because of the current ambiguity surrounding the term cult, ICSA does not produce an official list of cults, even though some people mistakenly interpret any list, e.g. a list of groups on which we have information, as a list of cults. Such a list would have little utility because there are thousands of groups about which people have expressed concern, yet scientific research has been conducted on few groups. A list could even be misleading, because some people might mistakenly think that the label cult implies that the group in question has all the significant attributes of the hypothetical cult, when in fact it has only some of those attributes. Conversely, some people may mistakenly assume that because a group is not on the list, that they need not be concerned. We advocate a nuanced, evidence-based approach to definition and classification. We do not ignore or disparage evidence, indicating that some groups may closely approach the theoretical cult, nor do we deny the necessity to make expert judgments about whether or not a particular set of group processes harmed a specific person or persons, a judgment that mental health clinicians and other professionals sometimes have to make in therapeutic or forensic contexts. We do, however, advocate that these kinds of judgments should rest on careful analysis of structure and behavior within a specific context, rather than a superficial classification decision.
Try as we might, the distinction between cult or cult-like behavior and other social norms, customs, or traditions remains a blurry one. That isn't to say it's not a distinction that matters. There's a reason so much research has been done in the field. But the reality is, social pressure so pervades our society that elements of this stuff can pop up all over the place. In many ways, you could argue society is a series of social pressures. With this in mind, I think it's easier to understand something like the volatile reaction Marty Rathbun had when Louis Theroux suggested the actors stand and applaud in the name of L. Ron Hubbard. As a man who'd spent so long deprogramming himself from the Church of Scientology's various psychological tricks, you can imagine the discomfort of seeing young, impressionable minds so quickly fall into the thinking of, oh, well, it's just a bit of fun, it doesn't mean anything. He's seen where things can go from there. And I think, most of all, this is what Christmas with the Kranks gets at. Something I feel I didn't stress enough with my Sky High video is that even if I did somehow expose some eugenicist subtext to this benign kids film, that's not me saying we're suddenly looking at secret Nazi propaganda when we see these ideas expressed in film. More so, what it's expressing is that these lines of thinking can fester in even the most unassuming, otherwise innocent pieces of media. it can wind up in a screenplay when nobody was really thinking about it. And at least in part, that's the point. Even the most extreme and destructive ideologies, at their core, can find themselves in the seemingly mundane. What this incredibly forgettable 2004 Tim Allen vehicle shows us is that at the end of the day, a cult at its best behaviour is indistinguishable from a harmonious, loving community, and a particularly petty suburban gated community can become indistinguishable from a cult. And if you think I'm dramatically overthinking what's basically just a poorly thought out subpar family comedy, hey folks, thanks for watching. Season's tidings and happy holidays. I hope you all enjoyed this one. It was kind of off the cuff, but I had fun making it. As per usual, if you like the video, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, sharing it around, and commenting down below, all of which help me out tremendously. If you like my channel in general, I also recommend considering throwing me a few bucks over on Patreon, one of the only means by which I can keep the channel going, to be on the list scrolling by now. Today I wanted to give a special thanks to A. Recusant, Callan Stein, Connor D, Kaura Ra, Industrial Robot, Malpatuis, No More Worlds, Torin the Exile, with an extra special thanks to Charlotte Allen and Leftist Tech Support. If you wanted to reach out to me, you can do so through Twitter at LackingSaint. I also do regular Twitch streams at twitch.tv/LackSaint. Lately I've been playing Pathologic. Yep, that one. There you go. Push him off the edge! 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 Yay! This video's channel recommendation is going to be Eyeballs. Wait, sorry, I meant Thoughts Line. They're a great channel discussing politics, both in terms of theory and everyday life, in a fun and engaging way, so please check them out. Finally, I wanted to give a thank you again to NordVPN for once again sponsoring me on this video. To take advantage of their holiday offer and a great service, check out the link in the description with the offer code JackSaint. Other than that, I'll see you all in the new year. As always, thanks again for watching, love you all, and stay safe. 2004's Christmas with the Kranks is... 2004's Christmas with the Kranks is a 2004's Christmas with the Kranks is a masterpiece of contemporary filmmaking, one of the single greatest cultural Hi, I'm JackSaint. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. Hi, I'm JackSaint. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. Hi, I'm JackSaint. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. Hi, I'm JackSaint. Hi, I'm JackSaint. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. And who the fuck wears clothes in a tanning bed?